Welcome to episode number 48 of Reezy Talks, the show where I interview all kinds of entrepreneurs and resellers, people that are making a full-time living selling stuff on the internet. Today, I am blessed to have TheDealQueen on the show. How are you doing, Alexandria?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Awesome. I like your background. That yellow,
Yeah, no,
really
it's
fresh.
it's that Wu-Tang black and yellow.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you. We got a lot of people in the chat today. A lot of people were really excited. We got Posh Hanger showed up on time. She's
All
here showing you
right.
some love.
Nice.
We got Zen Flips. We got Lauren Wilcock, Lauren Coal City Loot, Anna Lovejoy. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. If you're listening to this on the podcast, which will come out in a couple weeks after the live YouTube show, which is every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you missed out because you have opportunity to interact with us and ask questions in the chat and get those questions answered. So I'm not going to answer questions from the chat yet, or Deal Queen's not going to answer, and you guys have already heard everything I know by this point. But if you have questions, type out question in all caps, and then after that, add your question. And then when we get to that part of the show, at least halfway through the show, it will make it easier for me to find your questions, and I can scroll up through the chat and find them. Also, one thing I would appreciate that if you guys would help me out with, if there's any certain thing that stands out as super valuable or really important, or like the piece that you thought was the most important, please comment in the live chat or down below in the description, and that will help me for segmenting out that content to redistribute to you guys on Instagram or on Facebook. So because it's different. This is going to be a live show like an hour long, and that's not going to work on Instagram, but it would be cool to have just like the top 2 or 3 best parts that you guys thought were the best parts, and then push those out to you. So now that the super boring long intro is over, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how long have you been reselling? Are you full time? Like, just give us the 5-minute intro.
Oh man, 5 minutes. Holy cow. All right. So I'm 26. I'm from Arkansas, which people are always really surprised by that for some reason because I find cool stuff here. And there's always a conspiracy that you have to live in a good area to be able to find good stuff, which I totally don't agree with that at all. I think there's stuff everywhere, but I'm a full-time reseller. I'm primarily selling Poshmark, but I started an eBay store in like towards the end of 2016. And I dabbled in that a little bit last year. But yeah, I resell full time, and I've been reselling for a little over 3 years full time. And I've been on Poshmark since 2012. So it's been cool. I definitely love it. It's a lot of freedom. And I know everybody watching can probably relate to the fact that reselling's the best. So yeah, I'm excited.
Reselling is the best. F the rest.
Exactly.
um, so what percentage of your sales would you say are Poshmark versus eBay?
Well, recently I've been really trying to amp up eBay, so I think it's getting a little bit more even, but I'd probably say like 70% Poshmark right now. And it's eBay's definitely growing though, and I'm learning a lot from the Instagram community and a lot from YouTube actually about, how to run my eBay store and everything, but it's really like just a completely different scenario over on eBay. It's just a completely different platform, and I think that's the biggest thing for most people who switch over from eBay to Poshmark is that like it's such a big transition for most people because I feel like it's just completely different. So,
Right. So let's talk about some of those differences, because I really think a lot of the value that you're going to be able to provide to the watchers and to the listeners is in the Poshmark field. Um, I've never bought anything off Poshmark. I haven't sold anything on Poshmark. I did make an account so that I could have the Reezy handle on Poshmark.
nice.
Um, but that's it. And I, for the longest time, I kind of tried to ignore all these other selling platforms. There's so many now. It's like there's a platform for every type of thing now. And one day, my daughter was browsing Poshmark. I'm like, "What website are you on?" She's like, "Oh, I'm on Poshmark." And I was like, "You look at Poshmark?" My daughter's 17, and she's like, "Yeah, like duh, dad." And I was like, "What are you looking at?" And she's like, "Oh, it's my friend's store." And I was like, "What? Your friend has a store?" And then she's scrolling through the stuff, and she's like, "Oh, that butthead, she was wearing this shirt at school today."
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
I was like,
hilarious.
yeah, and I was like, wow. So I kind of through my kid, I kind of like am learning what is more important to pay attention to. And I don't know about Poshmark, but does Poshmark have a guest checkout like how Etsy does?
Um, I'm honestly not 100% sure how it works. I think you have to make some sort of account. But I do know you can do like guest. So if you buy through the web, there's a way to make like a guest account. So you have a guest username. I'm not exactly sure how the process works, but a lot of my sales have recently been through the web, primarily through Google. And I know Poshmark is doing a huge push to get more like Google advertising and all of that stuff going. So a lot of my sales have actually been coming from the web. So it's been pretty cool, actually.
Awesome. Thanks real quick. Thanks for the $5 super chat, Zen Flips. Appreciate you, bro. Always here for the shows. Always learning. Um I think that's one thing that's really important to know is or to like think about is that the guest checkout situation on the platform. Like a lot of us sell on a platform, but we might not buy on a platforms, but it's really important to buy on the platform that you sell on so you can understand the psychology of the users. And my daughter has never purchased anything off of eBay or Amazon because of the account restrictions. Like, okay, to set it to buy on Amazon, you got to have an Amazon account. You got to link your bank account. You can't just find something and then go buy it and put your credit card in. To buy on eBay, it's similar. I think there's a guest checkout on eBay, but it's not as obvious, but you still need a PayPal account, which how these kids have no attention span, so which is there are customers now, that's the buying age. So you lose your customer because they're like, oh, I guess I didn't want it that bad, I have to make an account on here, or I got to make an eBay account and a PayPal account, like Jesus. So
Yeah.
the go ahead.
I this is going to be really traumatic information and I really don't know if I want to tell you or not, but I actually ordered my first ever item from Amazon last week.
Oh
Ever.
gosh, I'm
So I
traumatized.
am like your daughter. I guess I'm like a mega millennial, but yeah, I don't know how that's possible, but I actually bought my YouTube camera from Amazon last week. So had to make an account for that and everything, which that's always a
Nice.
funny fact that people think is hilarious about me
What
because I
camera
sell
did you pick
online.
up, by the way?
A Sony, I don't
A7
remember,
or something?
a 5100,
I think you got
1500
a good
something.
one.
I
I
did.
think
I
you
did a
got
lot
a
of
good one.
research. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, by the way, guys, always remember to show our guests some love. I have the Deal Queen's information is in the description. I was running a little late, so I didn't get to write out a super BA description about her, but I did get time to put her Instagram and her YouTube link in the description. So make sure you click on that and subscribe to her YouTube. So her Instagram is huge. I think it's a little bit bigger than mine. It's pretty large, larger than a lot of people in the reselling community. But her YouTube is not so large, so we need to help even that out, guys. So if you're watching this, go over there and show her some love. Or if you follow me on Instagram, go subscribe to her YouTube. Check it out. How long have you been on Instagram and how fast was your growth on Instagram?
I've been on Instagram, I think, since maybe like late 2016, mid 2016 or so. I had a personal Instagram and I made a second Instagram because I felt like my reselling stuff was getting annoying to my real friends in real life. So I made a second Instagram and then I just started YouTube last week. I literally just started it last week. So it's a new, exciting thing for me. But yeah, Instagram grew like a lot faster and like naturally. And I don't really know how that happened, to be completely honest, because I'm like all about like organic followers, so I don't even
Right.
use hashtags or anything like at all.
Like a lot of people. I actually sorry to detract guys from the whole Poshmark talk, which we'll get back into it, but this stuff is interesting to me and I hope to you as well. But um I really don't think hashtags are that important. Like, when was the last time you clicked on a hashtag and then like just consumed content from a hashtag? I mean, I
Very
know we
rarely.
fall you can follow hashtags now, so that kind of might change the game on Instagram a little bit. Actually,
Right.
probably a lot. But like prior to that function, when was the last time you went on a hashtag and like consumed the content? Not very much, right? So aside from getting into the top feeds, it's just much more important, like you said, to have organic growth and to reach people, provide value. They appreciate you. They share you. Like I think compared to like hashtags, like doing like little giveaways or like call to action engagements to where you're like, comment below your friend that needed to tag someone that needed to hear this today, or tag someone that didn't know this, or you have crap in your house laying around you could sell, you're not broke, like tag your friend that needs to know they can sell their stuff.
Right.
Those type of things grow massive on Instagram versus hashtags, right? So I
Yeah,
don't know about
social
that.
media is definitely interesting. I think that social media is huge, and I'm definitely like that's one of my 2018 goals is to grow my social media. And I just started a blog and I just started my YouTube channel,
Ooh,
so I'm
nice.
kind
Did
of
you get the dealqueen.com?
no, some guy or some girl somewhere owns it, but it doesn't exist. So they just own whatever the website is, which is unfortunate. But
And
the Deal Queen blog.
dealqueen.com is also taken.
Yep, it's just the dealqueenblog.com is what I had to go with, but that's all right. It'll work for now.
Yeah, you could always get a like a dot something else, right? Or a
Yeah.
you could go with like queen, like Kween or something. I don't know. Did you see
Yeah.
I tagged you on the Instagram promotion I did for this show that there's an actual location called the Deal Queen?
No?
Yeah,
What?
there's a
Where is
location on
it?
Instagram called the Deal Queen. I was surprised you haven't used it because I tapped on it and my photo that I posted was the only one that was on
What?
there. I just thought
That's
that was pretty
cool.
funny.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah, so let's get back into Poshmark. Let's talk about some of the main differences between eBay and Poshmark. Like you were saying, the things that people who just go to Poshmark from eBay might not understand or would probably have trouble with.
Okay, so I definitely think there's several, but probably the biggest ones would be shipping, the ease of listing, and the customer base. So shipping is one flat rate for anything up to 5 pounds. So if it's a necklace or it's a 4.5 pound pair of boots that's shipping from California to New York, it's all exactly one flat rate. And it's like
What is
really
that?
unique. It's 649, I believe. Last time I checked, it keeps
Okay.
going up a little bit, but I think it's 649. And so basically, it's called Posh Post. It's like this thing that Poshmark worked out with USPS, and literally anything up to 5 pound ships for the same rate. And then if it's like a bundle sale or something, you can change the shipping on the app too. So it's super easy. You don't have to even own a scale, which is why it's so millennial friendly. And also, yeah, like I said, millennials love Poshmark because it's very social. It primarily is a women oriented app because it used to just be women's fashion, and they just recently launched men's and kids. So it's very friendly. People are really social, especially with the sharing aspect. So there's a sharing function within the app that basically engages you with other closets. So basically, sharing other people's listings and helping them make sales is like part of the whole app, which is pretty cool. So I think that those are definitely up there. And then also listing on Poshmark is crazy easy. Like snap a few pictures on your iPhone and post, and it takes 3 seconds. There's not a lot of fields to fill out or anything like that. So it's like
Can you
this.
list from the desktop or is it only on the phone?
They recently just did desktop listings. So I actually think it's easier from the phone, but I think Monica cross posts from eBay. Um, Pretty sure she does.
Do
So
you
yeah,
cross post also or no?
I don't actually, not really a lot. I mean, there's a few things that I've recently cross posted, but I actually sell different things on eBay than on Poshmark. I feel like I sell a lot more mature brands and like definitely like eBay brands like Eileen Fisher and stuff. I sell more
Which
of
is
that kind of
I'm not
stuff.
an expert of fashion, far from it. I just wear t-shirts and Dickies, but um Eileen Fisher is kind of like an older brand, right?
Right. So my thing is I actually sell like career styles and like more mature brands on eBay, and then all of my like trendier millennial stuff goes on Poshmark. So that's
And
kind of how I split it
and
up.
is it selling for more on Poshmark also, not just getting more views?
Oh, guaranteed for sure. I absolutely sell everything for more, definitely more profit. The fee on Poshmark is a flat 20%, but it gets taken out when the buyer pays. So you're really not noticing that, a few percentage points difference. And I always make more on Poshmark, especially for select brands. Like, I know a lot of people like selling Anthropologie. It always sells for more on Poshmark than on eBay. So
Nice. Do you think
yeah.
there's opportunity to buy clothing off of eBay to sell on Poshmark?
Yeah, and vice versa. I know a lot of people source eBay product from Poshmark and kind of go back and forth like that. So it's definitely just a different market. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people to really understand that are coming from an eBay background is that, in my opinion, it's completely different market. So if you're just cross listing all your stuff from eBay to Poshmark, you might have a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, Monica, the Posh Hanger, she says, "Are you guys all on Poshmark? I think it's the easiest of all platforms."
It is.
Um, so how important is it? I always hear this, share your closet, share your closet. What exactly does that mean? What do you have to do to share your closet? And how important is that to having a successful Poshmark business?
So it's definitely one of the most important functions of Poshmark. And the really cool thing that people don't really talk about as much is that self sharing is just as important, if not more important, than sharing other closets. So there's a function within the app where you share your own listings. And when you do that, that's why you have followers on Poshmark, because theoretically, when you share your listings or someone else's listings, it's going to all of your followers' feeds. So, like if I share my listings, they may reach a certain amount of people in the feed, and then also it bumps up to the top of search. So, rather than having to pay to promote my listings or something like that, all I have to do is share my listings, and they're always essentially at the top of search. So, if somebody searches that brand or whatever.
So do you share everything in your entire closet every day? Twice a day? Or how does that
That's
work?
the goal. A lot of people do multiple times a day. I don't have time. I have like quite a bit of, well, I mean, it's a little low right now, but normally I have over 1,000 listings. So it's a little time consuming to share your whole closet, but a lot of people share their entire closet multiple times a day. Like,
Is this something that you do from mobile, from the Poshmark app, or like what's the most efficient way to share items? Because I've heard people talk about this, like, oh no, you need to use the browser on your phone, and like there's a certain way that allows you to share items like with less taps on the screen or something.
I personally think that the iPad is the fastest, but I also think that like if you're going to share from a computer desktop, it's pretty fast as well. If you're sharing from your phone, it's effective, but it's going to take you a lot longer just because I mean, the way that they have the buttons positioned is just a little bit more time consuming.
So if you had employees, would this be one task you would give them?
Yes, I actually had an assistant for 3 months last year, and she shared my closet for like an ungodly amount of hours every day, and I'm sure she hated me for that, but it was necessary, and I wanted to test it out, and it made a huge difference for sure.
Is there promoted listings on Poshmark?
Nope, just sharing. Which I mean, I think that really the way to stand out on Poshmark as like a top seller would be basically having followers. I mean, followers
How do you
aren't going to
get
necessarily
followers on Poshmark?
they
Aside from
have
just telling, like, say, your Instagram followers to follow your closet.
basically following other people, being super interactive on the app, and then also qualifying to be a Poshmark ambassador puts you into this wheel. So you're a suggested user to other people on the app. So people who are just starting or people they match you based on an algorithm. I'm not exactly sure what all goes into it, but yeah, it's once you become a Poshmark ambassador, your followers are going to grow really quickly.
It's like being a made man.
Yes.
So how do you become a Poshmark ambassador?
There's like a few basic steps that you have to take. I think you have to make one purchase. You have to share 5,000 community shares, which I know a lot of people have been talking about how time consuming that is. I believe there's also a 5,000 limit for yourself. So you have to do 5,000 personal shares. And then a couple other requirements like make 10 sales or something along those lines. But they actually just recently did that. So before that, it was a suggested user program and it didn't really make a lot of sense. So they kind of restructured it like I want to say like maybe 5 months ago or so.
So when you say engaging, what do you mean? Commenting on other people's items? Or I don't know. I've never used it, so I don't even know what type of. I know how social media works, right? So I know how you can get someone's attention on Instagram. How do you get people's attention on Poshmark to try and
So
convert them to be your follower?
Definitely commenting. You can follow people, especially new users, and like welcome them to the app. And then there's also this kind of complicated like party thing on the app that people are usually confused by when they first join. But there's actually these things called Poshmark parties, and they happen within the app. So actually, the most activity on the app is basically surrounding these parties. So I think that they're at 3 times a day now, maybe four. I can't keep up with it, but there's a branded party in the morning. So they give you a list of brands that are shareable to that party. And if you have any of those brands, they get shared to this party, and it's basically like a showroom. So you can go into the showroom and shop those brands from people who have shared to the party.
And what does
And
the
then
interface look like when you're in the showroom for, like, say, the brand party? Is it similar to the regular Poshmark interface, or is it different?
yeah, it's definitely similar. It's like blocked out more, so the feed is more like it's broken out by different things when you're scrolling
So
through
it's
the
a feed
regular
that you
feed.
scroll vertically top to bottom.
Right. And then also in the evening parties, there is something called a host pick. So they pick people from the community to host parties, and people in that host the parties pick items from the community. And it's kind of like an honor to be chosen by the host, basically.
So that
And
one's
so,
probably huge as far as growing your following is concerned.
right. And so if you get a host pick, it actually goes into a separate tab of the interface. So, like, if you're in the party, there's a separate tab at the top that you can click on that says host picks, and you can shop the host picks. So that's pretty cool.
So it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like a community involved, like the brand one anyways, the brand party. It's kind of like an Instagram story, but like everyone can add to it. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously it's
kind
not
of.
like that type of content or whatever, but like the way that the engagement works, and it's an explorable thing by everybody that other people are contributing to, like a location story or something.
Yeah, it's definitely similar to that. And I mean, from what I understand, like when the party times are coming up, right before and right after and during the party is like some of the most popular times of the whole day that people are actually shopping. So it's definitely like important for the app.
Right, which makes sense, right? That they're gonna throw their little events during those times.
Right. Exactly.
So, if sharing stuff is really important, is there a strategy around partnering with other people that you know that sell on Poshmark to share their closet and they share your closet, similar to how you might collaborate with someone on Instagram or YouTube to try and share each other's audience?
Yes. So there's definitely such thing as a share group, and I don't necessarily know if that's effective because I've never actually been in one before, but I do know a lot of people do these share groups so they all share each other's listings when you join, and that's kind of like part of
Okay,
their
so it's
little.
kind of like an Instagram engagement pod or whatever, to where, do you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
Hmm.
Yeah. In case you're listening and you don't know, it's a group of people on Instagram. You make like a private message on Instagram with 10 or 20 people. And when you make a post, you put the link in the group chat, then everyone goes to it and likes your post and comments on it. And supposedly that drives up the algorithm, or, they change the algorithm all the time. So who knows what, by getting 20 likes really quickly and 20 comments, that will push your feed up in organic search more or whatever. And I'm assuming it's all the same. It's all search engine optimization and algorithms, just
Yeah.
different
Exactly.
platform.
Yeah, it's very social media friendly and also very similar to a lot of social media. So like I actually think the feed does look similar to Instagram. I definitely think it has like an Instagram feel to it. But I think that sharing is definitely like very important. So important that some people take it super seriously. So like if they share your listings and you don't share back, some people get upset by that, but it's not required. You don't have to share or be social or anything like that. It's just helpful.
Yeah, that's
So,
insane. Yeah, I could see that though. They're like, you know the way the game goes. I shared your stuff. You
yeah,
better
and
share
especially
mine.
for me, it does get kind of overwhelming to be honest because I do have quite a few people sharing my closet all day long, and so it would be virtually impossible for me to share back to everyone. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely a little bit time consuming to be sharing all the time for
Now, do
sure.
you have a lot of your Instagram followers following you on Posh and vice versa?
Yeah, I think that probably the majority of my followers probably do follow me on Poshmark. I think a lot of people already kind of followed me on Poshmark, and they always ask me questions and stuff on the app. So once they found out that I had an Instagram, they kind of followed me over there.
So
So,
here's the $10,000 question, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, but and forgive me because I don't consume your feed that much, but do you share prices that you paid for stuff on Instagram ever?
no, and there's actually a reason for that. And the reason is that the couple of times that I've done that in the past, people have immediately gone over to my store and written, "You paid this for this item, and why are you selling it for so much?" So the second that that started happening, and it actually like me teaching people was jeopardizing like my ability to sell my items, I just
Right.
decided that I'm not going to be sharing that kind of stuff.
Side note, what is wrong with people? Why,
I know,
like,
right? They
why
have to
how do
ruin
they
it for
have that much
everybody.
time to do that? And then, like, first of all, why do they think it's bad when, like, they're gonna go buy some plastic junk from Walmart and they don't, it's like, say it's 10 bucks at Walmart. They don't, like, go, "Well, Walmart, you got this for 6 bucks." Like,
Exactly.
"You're ripping me off, Walmart." And Walmart and the Chinese company that made it, they made it for, like, a dollar, so it's
Yeah,
just a
it's
really weird
unfortunate.
consumer like, people are straight consumers to where they don't even think like that at all on, like, regular retail products, but when it comes to reselling, like, because we've humanized it, and you can, like, see what we're doing, you wanna think that, like, we're bad because 'cause we're resellers? Like, get a
Yeah,
life.
the whole culture of it is actually really interesting, and especially on Poshmark, I think that since it's such a social app, that it's actually easier to make your opinion super public. So, like, leaving a comment is essentially permanent unless you delete the entire listing. So you can't
Wow.
delete a comment. So it's pretty like hardcore, which is why I don't feel comfortable sharing that kind of stuff anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, the only downside is that a lot of people are really inspired by numbers. So I know
Right.
some people like, "Oh, it's bragging or whatever," and I'm like, "Man, for me, I think it's important to share that stuff because I know that at least for my type of personality, those are what get me really excited, right? Is, what someone paid for it or what, and especially for like fashion stuff, like if you know fashion, or whatever, but I don't know anything about fashion. So like that jacket that you posted today on Instagram, I believe it was today, it was like a nice winter coat that you found.
Mhm.
What brand was that?
Barbour or something, Barber, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's a vintage ski jacket, but they sell for good money. I've actually never sold one before, but I know, like, I mean, if you look up the comps on eBay, they're like crazy. So,
Right, and I've never seen that brand ever. Did you know that brand already, or did you look it up, or was it something about the feel of it that got your attention?
I would say by this point, I'm kind of really familiar with quality. So if it looks like something like it had a fur collar, like a real, like genuine fur collar on it, and I was like, I mean, no cheap brand puts genuine fur on anything, and I was familiar with the brand name, so I just knew it was a good find, and then I looked up comps just to be sure afterwards. But
Right. So that's a good little pro tip, I guess, that even a really beginner can understand is that if it has fur on the garment, it's worth looking up.
right, or genuine leather or anything like any shoes. I would say if you know how to detect if something's real suede or like faux suede, that's going to save you so much time because you don't even have to look at the faux suede like 90% of the time because most of those are fashion shoes and not like quality or designer shoes because no designer is making stuff out of plastic. So,
Right.
cool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, see, I can I can relate to that because selling books for 13 years, I know what like a good book feels like. Like if I was at the bins and we're just grabbing stuff and looking at it later, like I know what to grab. Like I'm kind of looking at it, but it's more of like how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have that knowledge with clothing, but I would imagine that like it would be fun to do a video, like get some resellers and then like bring in some blind testing garments. Like, okay, here, check out this garment. You can't look at it. You can only feel it. Like, and
Oh
you
yeah,
have to
I've
pay
always
this and
wanted
you
to
have to
do
pay
that.
this much. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've always wanted to do that actually. I think it would be a really interesting test to see like I mean, I actually think Secondhand Swagger did something like that with tags. He blurred out the name but just posted the tag shape and stuff and people had to like guess what brand it was, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dominic should totally start a YouTube. He could wear his mask and everything.
I know. I wish you would. That'd be really cool.
I told him I want to have him on the show, and I was like, "You can wear the mask. I don't care."
Yeah, that would be legit.
Yeah, it would be, right? Because what does it matter? It doesn't matter. It's like all the knowledge. He's like one of the hardest working guys in the thrift game. Like every time someone tells me, but I got nothing in my town, or like I got to drive an hour, or I got to drive like an hour and a half. I'm like, dude, secondhand swagger drives like 2 hours a day each way.
I know, right? I actually drove to Nordstrom Rack, which is like 2.5 hours from me. And I was like, holy cow, I cannot imagine doing this every day. And he does it like every day, which is crazy.
Right. Right. Definitely. Super cool, dude. So, you said that you sell career pieces on eBay. What can you explain what a career piece is for a non-fashion sensical dude like myself?
Sure. So I would say anything that like you can wear to the office. So like a pencil dress or like a sheath dress or a blazer or anything that like is very career appropriate or like a mature brand is usually what I put on eBay. And just basically anything that isn't like a trendy piece basically. And there's a lot of stuff that I'll cross post if I think it's like a good brand but also trendy. So like higher end designer sometimes does better for me on eBay. So that's another thing that I usually consider either cross posting or just putting on eBay. But millennials love Poshmark and are willing to pay up for like more basic brands, if that makes sense. So they'd rather buy something that's trendy and cute and pay a little bit more rather than get like a super luxury brand and, get it at a discount. Like they're more about trends. It's very
Yeah, they
important
don't
to
they
have
don't
good
know what
brands, but
quality is.
yeah, it's important to have good brands because they're searchable and it helps your store in search. So I think that's the key of having good brands. But then when it really comes down to it, if you're selling good brands but they're not cute, they probably won't sell. So
Someone in the chat was like, "Yeah, right. If Dominic makes a YouTube, it'll be all of his baby, but I'm okay with that."
yeah, he's so cute.
Oh my god. I'll never forget. It's so funny. This one story that wasn't a story. I think it was just a picture that Dominic posted on Instagram. We're talking about secondhand swagger. His Instagram is secondhand_swagger, right?
Yep,
Go follow him, guys, if you want inspiration. He sells on like 5 platforms every day. Like he's the definition of stop complaining.
exactly.
But he wrote a story. I forget what the picture was. I think it was like a weird sideways angle from taken from the floor or something. And he was talking about how he was in the shower and he like heard a sound and he got out of the shower. It was like he thought someone was trying to break in his house, so he was going to get his gun, and then he like slipped on the floor and slammed his shin in the door jamb. And then
Oh my,
he gets to the door and it's literally like just the mailman dropping off his online arbitrage purchases or
oh
something.
my gosh, that's crazy.
And just how he's like, imagine me, I'm standing behind the door naked with a messed up shin, and
That's
it was
hilarious.
the mailman. Life of a reseller.
Seriously.
um so let's talk a little bit about your process for Poshmark. How do you, because I know process is very, very important. A lot of people are overwhelmed really easily with, I got this huge pile of stuff to list now. What do I do? Do you have a mannequin? Do you have special lighting for eBay? Do you like, what's your process? Like, let's just say you have a big pile of stuff and you're getting ready to list it. How do you go through with your process?
So 98% of the time I have to steam it. So I steam a big pile and then I have like a wallpapered wall with a hook on it. It's like a gold fancy looking hook. And then I have a pearl hanger. It's like my signature thing. If you look at my Poshmark closet, it's pretty much in all of my pictures. I either hang the item on that pearl hanger or I have a dress form that I use. And I actually use natural light for that. So I take all my pictures during the day and use natural light. But then I also have a flat lay setup with like a white backdrop, a fluffy rug, and I use Limo Studio like box lights for that. So I have like a whole photo setup in my office.
Yeah, I got a couple of those Limo Studio lights. I purchased this is right now, this is my ring light, but I purchased some Limo Studio lights. My ring light actually broke. I kicked it over and it broke. My bad.
Uh-oh.
And then Neewer, the company that makes the ring light, they were cool enough to sponsor me and send me another one. Shout out to Neewer for sending me this ring light. So now I have the Limo Studio lights, which are going to go into the garage for my white paper eBay backdrop setup. I'm like super excited to find, because I've never had a dedicated eBay photo setup. Like I've always just like taken it, and that's like one thing that I want to touch on real quick. I think a lot of people like people will not list stuff because they don't have like perfect photo conditions. But I think it's much more important to just list your stuff. Like, yeah, you'll get better action and sell it for higher if you have better pictures, but you're not going to sell it at all if you don't take pictures.
Right, exactly. And I think that's another thing that's overwhelming about selling online at all for a lot of people is that, especially Poshmark people, they're like, oh, well, I don't have any of the stuff that you have. I don't know where to start and stuff like that. But as long as the pictures look clean, even if you're using like a white door, a white, wall, and you have like sunlight coming in, it's going to be fine. I wouldn't recommend like having it crumpled up on your bed, like all dirty and covered in cat hair. But I mean,
Right.
just having like a clean background is really all that matters.
Yeah, I'm not even an expert at all. I used to sell on eBay a lot, a long, long time ago. I'm getting back into it, partly because it's good content for YouTube, and partly because I really enjoy thrifting and finding random stuff, which I don't get that joy out of Amazon. It's just much more of a business type thing. And I took some pictures, and people were like, wow, those pictures are great, like how did you do this? And I just hung them on a hanger on a wall on a thumbtack on a white wall. And I took the picture with my iPhone, and I turned the brightness up so that the white wall was a little bit brighter than it should be, and so that the color of the garment reflected what I thought it really looked like in real life. And then I put it into superimpose app on a white background and removed the wall from it, so I had a pure white background. But it was way easier than most people probably thought it was. It wasn't a special camera. I didn't have any lighting. I used my phone flash, like just used a free app.
Yeah,
So
it's
we have a lot of technology. Like imagine back in the day when you had to like go buy a camera, because like
yeah,
eBay's been around way before smartphones came out, right? So you had to go buy a camera, you had to have a computer, you had to hook it up to the computer to get the photos. Like it was a lot harder.
yeah. I think that's the big growth in reselling too recently is that these apps, especially like Poshmark and eBay Mobile, it's just making it so easy for people to make money. Like there's just as long as you have hustle, there's money out there to be made, and I think that's again a really cool thing about like e-commerce is that it's accessible to literally anybody. You don't have to have a degree, you don't have to have any training, you don't have to have anything other than just some drive to make some money, basically. So
Yeah, it's really changing the world and the way things work. So I have a friend, a high school buddy. He's kind of like a party animal, and he's a nomad. He has like a brand new, like a 2017 or a 2018 van, and he lives in his van or he stays in hotels or whatever, but he keeps it really clean, and he also does Uber, and that's like his main source of income. But he was telling me, he was here the other night, and he was telling me that I forget the name of it, but there's another app that he uses, and it's like labor on demand or something. So he can like be at home one evening and then just like look at jobs which are within like 30 miles of where he's at, and like, oh, we need help building a fence tomorrow, we need this, we need that, and you just like tap on it and you say, yep, I'll be there at 8 a.m. You show up at 8 a.m. and you do the work, and when you're done they tap like, yeah, he did the work, and then the money shows up in the app. And it's like, it's crazy.
that's so cool. Yeah, that's the internet is definitely changing the world for sure.
Brian the Oakbrook picker, he said, I had like a 2 pixel camera when I started on eBay.
Yeah, it used to be really rough. My parents have sold on eBay for like years and years, but yeah, we used to be super old school.
Do you remember the first thing that you sold online? A random question.
Yeah, it was a bundle of four of my old tank tops from college that were floral printed. Like she bought four tops for me. And then the second thing I ever sold was like some Michael Kors watch that I got on super mega clearance at TJ Maxx that I bought for myself, and then I doubled my money after I wore it for 2 years. So that
Wow,
was
that's
pretty
like an
cool.
aha moment, right?
Yeah, it was so
Did you
cool.
go and look for more watches after that?
Well, I like seriously for the first probably 6 months or so, just like sold everything that I owned. Like, I don't think I even had any clothes by the end of that 6 months because I was just so addicted to selling stuff that I was like selling stuff I still liked just because I felt like selling it. So, yeah, I had completely cleaned out my own closet by that point.
Am I confused, or did you recently sell a very expensive jacket that someone brought to you?
I sold a ski jacket from my hairdresser. She was like, "Oh, my dad bought me this like 15 years ago and it has the tags on it and I never wore it. Can you take it?" And this was when I had barely started eBay and it was not something I would put on Poshmark. So it sat in my house for 6 months and then I finally listed it and it sold, I think, for $495. So that was
Wow.
weird.
And
Yeah.
what's your general consignment terms? Is it 50-50?
Well, I told her, I mean, I don't really do consignment, to be honest. If I have a lot of like quote unquote clients that I'm working with now, I'm really trying to get into cleaning out people's closets rather than having to thrift all the time because it's really time consuming.
Mhm.
So for that stuff, I don't do consignment. I just buy it from them directly and basically say like, "Hey, I know this is going to seem unfortunate because I know how much your stuff is, like, you paid a ton of money for it, but I can only pay X price." And then I pay them either for a bulk lot of it or I pay individual prices for each piece that are relatively low. But I don't really do consignment. That was just like a one-off random thing.
Right. Yeah. You got to be firm with that because a lot of people think that, well, they'll just sell it themselves. No, they won't. They won't. They would
They
have done it
won't.
already. They won't. So it's
Exactly.
like just be firm, and if you have to, like walk away, walk away. I feel like 75% of the time when you just are extra firm and you like walk away from a negotiating situation, but you're sticking by your guns, like they always go, "Oh, okay." Like right when you're about to leave, like only 25% of the time do you actually leave and not get the deal, and that goes with any type of negotiating.
Right. And I think that's a funny thing that, when you're walking in to somebody's house to buy from them directly, it's like a really weirdly personal experience because everyone, especially like the people who I work with who have, like crazy expensive wardrobes, like all designer stuff and things like that, they're really attached to their stuff and they don't actually realize how, like, quote unquote worthless used clothing actually is. So it's like the most, overpopulated industry. Basically, it's one of the easiest things to source is pre-owned clothing. So people are really attached to their clothing, but when they think about it in reality, it's not actually worth anything unless you have someone like resellers who actually have a market and customers who are willing to buy that stuff.
Yeah,
So
and a process for how to list it. Can you imagine what your death pile would be like if you didn't even know how to use a platform and didn't have a process?
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they just want to get their stuff out of their house. So like the last lady that I worked with, this was literally what she said. I said, "Okay, well, I can give you $300 for all of it." And she said, "Hmm, okay, there's a bag that I want that's about $300. So that'll work." Like, that's as easy of a process
Yep.
as it was for her. Like, she wants to buy something else and she doesn't want all this crap in her house. So, yeah,
Right.
that's how you negotiate.
That's awesome. Yeah. I always tell people used clothing is like my backup plan. That's like my emergency card because I'm well aware of the fact that how plentiful used clothing is. If you think about books versus clothing, more people have clothing than read books. Not everybody reads books. Like, let's like forget like we have cell phones now, so people don't read. Let's go back to before cell phones came out. Still, a lot of people didn't read. Like, reading has always been seen like just only for intellectuals or only for nerds, but like fashion is for literally everybody. Like, I'd say like I don't know, this is probably a terrible estimation, but like let's say like 25% of the population reads in America. 75% probably care about their fashion, especially women.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and women don't just own like a few pieces. Most women own an entire wardrobe. And I'm sure you've read all the stats on pre owned clothing now. It's like we keep our clothing for, 40% of the time we used to. And we usually don't even wear it. And it gets donated with the tags and just all these crazy statistics about pre owned clothing now because the fast fashion industry has just completely changed everything.
Yeah, and the one thing that got against it, but and going for it is that there's no barcodes on clothing. So it's like I've been selling books for like 13 years, and besides me being able to like blindly like feel for conditions of books or whatever that I would think is worth money, I'm not like an expert. Like, I'm not like what I call these gray hairs, which are booksellers that existed before smartphones. And they know like titles. They have like titles of books memorized and certain authors that they know. They're like, I don't know any of that stuff. I've never had to know it. I just scan the barcodes as fast as possible. And then I know what's worth money because I have data. But with clothing, you can't scan it. You have to look up every single thing, or you have to know all the brands. And so it's not really as accessible, like to be able to pilfer it so easily. But I feel like almost anywhere in America, you could have three full-time resellers go into a store after each other, one after another, and they could all come out with armfuls of clothing, and it would all be different stuff. And there'd still be more stuff for more resellers to go get. It's just all about like what are you willing to deal with? What do some people prefer to sell shoes, some people prefer to sell jackets. Like,
Right.
it's
And
very
see,
plentiful.
that's the fascinating thing about pre-owned clothing and just like used stuff in general is that there's a market for it, but it's really interesting depending on where you're selling it, who your target customer is, and all of that. Because I could sell, like, let's use a J. Crew jacket, for example. Like, I sell those, let's just say a specific style for $70. But somebody else on Poshmark might have it listed for 12. But I know like my customers love J. Crew, and I usually can get a premium price because it's listed in my closet and things like that. Like, there's so much that goes into a pre-owned item that just because I can sell it for that price or someone else can sell it for that price doesn't mean that anyone else can. You know what I mean? It's just so like a very personal experience with like who happens to pick up the item. And there are a lot, like, I know, like, personally I know 5 full-time resellers, and I live in a small town. So
Right.
I mean, we all, I mean, I went thrifting with one today. My friend Shay and I were in the store at the same time and picked up totally different things. I mean, there's going to be things that we overlap on, but really, like, there's plenty of stuff to go around.
Right. Yeah, because like the whole way that the customer works, like sure if they're searching for like J. Crew in the like general part of it or whatever, but if they happen to like J. Crew and they weren't searching for it, but you shared it and they saw it in their feed, that's different. They're going to go buy your item. They're not going to go look for other J. Crew items. Or if they're in your closet, they're going to be looking at it's the same reason why I might often sell a used book for more than a new book, because they were looking at the used offers, or they somehow arrived and they saw what they wanted and they bought it. They didn't go and investigate, other ways of purchasing it or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing that I try to remind people too, is that like a huge part of online sales is like proximity and convenience, because they might want something, but if they're not really like dying to have it, they're just looking for something that's close by that they think is cute. Like, they're just kind of browsing and shopping rather than searching. And I actually think that's a lot of my customers, is that they're just browsing, because a lot of times they'll just make an offer immediately, like don't think on it or anything. It's kind of an impulse purchase. So when people are browsing, that's a completely different thing.
So I hear a lot of times, I hear sellers on Instagram talking about people like really lowballing the offers on Poshmark. Is that something that you deal with a lot?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's part of it, but I also think it's the age group. It's like, millennials aren't like loaded, so they're trying to get the best deal possible. But I also think that if you're willing to negotiate, that's really helpful. Like, I do definitely list higher so that I can accept offers. I have a banner in my closet that says, like, love the item, not the price, make an offer. Like, I price high enough in order to accept offers, because it's the thrill of making a deal that people like. And I know, a lot of people who are too stingy with their prices, like, if you have a listed for 35, you paid 3, somebody offers you 25, just take it. Take the money and move on with your life and find something else cool to sell. Like, there's no point in arguing over $3.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's a popular recurring concept that when I talk to eBay sellers or clothing sellers, or mostly just eBay, and you're the first Poshmark seller, but not with Amazon sellers obviously, but it's like people with listing too. It's the same thing. They spend way too much time listing something because they do too much research, because they're trying to get like that extra $3 per item, right? When
mhm.
in the reality is they could have moved on and they could have listed like 3 or 4 more items in that same time period. and you make how much off of those, so you're chasing $3, but you're really losing money from your time and your own frustration or whatever. And like the reality of it is you paid how much for it, so don't tell them, right?
Right. And it's, there's a fine line. I mean, I think that you want to get a fair price. You're not going to accept, like every low baller that comes by, but if you price in order to accept offers, I mean, that's part of the game. People want the best deal possible. They get excited when you accept their low ball offer, or like, let's say like 30% off or whatever, you accept it, they get excited. Like, that's part of the game. They win, you move on.
Right.
So.
In the chat, people were talking about trades. Can you do trades on Poshmark?
You can, but I mean, it's definitely not encouraged. And I definitely would never do it because it's not Poshmark protected by any means. So if something happens and the person never ships your item,
Oh,
well,
so
then
it's not supported by the platform. That's something people would do outside.
right. And like they can't do anything about it because what happens is so like let's say I had a dress, you had a dress, and we wanted to swap dresses. The lowest price that you can list something at is $3 on Poshmark. So we both list at $3, and then we obviously pay the shipping both ways. But you can't that's still technically a transaction. Like Poshmark's making a very small fee off of it, but you're not protected because it's not an actual transaction, if that makes sense. So technically they can't say you can't do it because according to their rules you could just be selling something for $3, but if there's like correspondence saying it's a trade, like it's not supported by their
Right.
platform at all.
So on a Poshmark listing, do you include all of the same type of stuff you would include on an eBay listing? And what are those things that you include?
I actually do not. This is an unpopular opinion, and I'm not saying that I suggest this, but I actually don't measure every single thing. I measure, if somebody asks, I'll measure like, waist and bust on a dress. And then I usually always include like, the inseam of denim. But for me, I actually did do this for like a year. I listed everything with measurements and it made absolutely no difference in my sales. And I know eBay customers are different and they're a little more picky and want to be sure about what they're buying, but on Poshmark, for me, it's helpful because I won't get asked, but at the same time, as far as like results and sales, it makes absolutely no difference for me. So
Why do
that's
you
just
think that is?
because Poshmark buyers are really impulsive and don't like, they just don't really care. Like most
Are they
millennials
maybe
just
more
kind of.
familiar with the sizing of the type of clothing that they're buying?
Right. So they're familiar with the brand usually, and they're usually familiar with how it fits them. So it's kind of an impulse buy. They see it, oh, I love J. Crew. They buy it. Like it's more of an impulsive thing and less of a let me make sure it's going to fit me type of thing. So for me personally, it doesn't make that
Hold on
much of
real
a
quick. Right now,
difference.
your volume just got much louder. How did you do that?
I don't know. I'm not touching anything.
Was it when you picked your phone up, or were you covering the speaker or something?
Nope. Am I still
Oh,
loud?
I mean, it's all right. It just got a lot louder for a second. I was wondering if we could keep that going, that would be great.
Uh
Either
oh.
way, everyone can hear. They just need to hear me much louder because they turned their volume up.
Uh oh. Okay.
Uh, um, what was I gonna say? What are some of the top brands that you like selling on Poshmark?
Um, my most recent YouTube video is actually about mall brands because I think it's something that people always complain they can't sell mall brands. They're super like prevalent in thrift stores, but they can't sell them because they don't sell for anything, blah, blah, blah. But my whole philosophy is that people love mall brands, which is why mall brands even exist at all. But they like buying recent.
What is a mall brand, by the way?
Okay, so like Banana Republic, White House Black Market, and Taylor, J. Crew, like stuff if you went to a traditional like mall and you walked
Like
around.
stuff you could get at Gap or something.
Right. Like, I mean, I guess you could consider Victoria's Secret and things like that a mall brand because if you walk into a giant like mall, all these stores would be there. But people always complain that mall brands aren't expensive enough and you don't have much of a resale value and things like that. But people love mall brands. They just want to buy current pieces. And so that's the biggest thing, especially for eBay people. They're like, oh, well, that's not a good brand, but it is a good brand. People wear those brands. They just want recent stuff that just recently came out in the store. So they're still trendy and on trend, but familiar with the sizing and everything. So I really like selling mall brands. Tory Burch, obviously, all the obvious ones. Tory Burch, Kate Spade, Michael Kors, just the obvious girl brands, I guess.
Nothing's obvious for a guy like me that knows nothing about fashion.
Well, I'm sure you know what Tory Burch is.
Yeah, no, I recognize that logo. Shout out to Travel and Thrift.
Yes.
We
So,
were before we got on this call, guys, we were talking about I was like, "So you sell mostly women's fashion, right?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Um Vogue Squared sells mostly men's clothing. It seems like and if I go to the thrift store, I mean, I'll look through the women's stuff, but I'm going to look through the men's stuff first. And then, I might know, because I've got some knowledge from Instagram, from like people who post tag photos, which by the way are my very favorite type of content to see on Instagram, is like a 3x3 grid of 9 different tags of items, because that's easy to just stick into your brain and remember those. But I'm going to trend towards what I know. And I was saying how John at Travel, how do you do his Instagram username? Do you know?
yeah,
I
it's
know
just
it's
travel and thrift. Yeah.
Travel and Thrift, all
Mhm.
one word. He's like the only dude that sells women's clothing. He specializes in purses and shoes, and he crushes it. But for the most part, you sell what you know, right? So I think it's just important to try and learn from other people like the Deal Queen or Posh Hanger, who is in the chat, like all these things. I don't think it's impossible. John's proving it. Guys can sell women's clothing too. You just have to be
Exactly.
in touch with that side of fashion, because I think a lot of guys are like me, where it's like I wear Dickies and a t-shirt. Like I don't care. I get the same thing again and again. It's a t-shirt. I don't need to try it on. I'm like, let's get out of here. I got what I want. Like, let's go. It's not like it wasn't until I was a reseller that I actually enjoyed shopping, because like not because I get what I want, but because it's an adventure to find stuff to sell. Even if my wife drags me into she just dragged me into some high end shoe store. And in my head, I was like, you're not buying anything. Why are you dragging me in here? But what I actually did was I just walked around and looked at all the brand names of all the $150 to $300 shoes, because I want to be able to see those in the thrift store, because it's the same shoes that are like $300 shoes. They end up for the same price as the $50 shoes in the thrift store. Nobody knows, but if you do that research, you can find them, which is always pretty fun.
Yeah, that is awesome. And mentioning Vogue Squared, I actually think it's really funny. He's been trying to like kind of get into women, so he's always like texting me pictures of stuff so he can like walk over to the women's side and be like clueless and like kind of look around. But I do the same thing with men's. Like a lot of times, like okay, he bought a jacket here. I think it just sold on eBay for like $450. Like he came to Arkansas, bought this coat. I literally wouldn't have paid $1 for this coat because it looked like nothing to me. I had no idea. And he sold it on eBay I think for like $400 or something insane.
Wow.
So people know stuff different than you, so that's why it's always good to meet like different kinds of sellers than yourself.
Yeah, it's important if you know someone who's an expert in a certain niche, that like you can get their ear for a second, because like looking stuff up is not like the fastest. I started recently using a couple apps. There's one called Completely, and then one called What's It Worth, I believe. And it just expedites the process of looking up eBay. So you like put in a search term and you can say, show me completed only, show me auctions, show me buy it nows, which I'm usually looking at, show me completed, buy it nows. And then you could see like what did I find recently? I found Tuck shoes. My wife found them actually. They were like platform, like black suede, like some gothic style or whatever. But you put Tuck shoes, platform, black or whatever, and then you can see, oh, the sell through rate, 40%, the average sell price, etc. Like it makes it faster. But if you have someone that's willing to help you out and you can learn that way, that's great. So shout out to Nicole State, because I will sometimes like FaceTime her from inside the thrift and then have her help me go through like my pile. I'm like, what about this? And I'm like, what is it? Like Lululemon. She's like, oh, the leggings are dead. Like they're not worth much anymore. And I'm like, well, I got 3 pairs. And she's like, oh, that shawl that you have though, that's killer. The Lululemon shawl. And sure enough, I look up the leggings and they're all like less than $15, but the shawl is going for like $80. Just like
Yep.
I would have thought it was like a scarf, but it's kind of like a weird long jacket thing with no buttons or anything.
Yep. It's definitely interesting. And that, you go back to the same thing with Lululemon too, is that buying recent styles, like that's the one thing if I could push any topic, it would be if you're gonna resell on Poshmark, buy recent styles because that's what people are searching for. Yeah, they love Lululemon, but if you're selling a basic Lululemon tank from 2015, people don't really want that. But you're selling the shawl, like you just mentioned, that's super hot, just came out last season. Of course, people are going to pick that
Did
up.
it really come
So
out last season?
I don't know. I'm just making that up, but you know what I mean.
Oh,
Like, just the concept of like people want what's in style, basically.
right. And if you're a guy and you don't know what style is, connect with some of these women who do.
Exactly.
Follow
Yes.
their feeds because they're putting out good information. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see you should do a whole series of here's a solid idea for YouTube. Do
Okay.
a whole series of videos that's dedicated to teaching men women's fashion.
All right. That could be
Like
kind
and
of
you
fun,
could
actually.
probably do it. You could do it like have Josh like fly in or whatever or do it remotely and like teach Josh but turn that into content.
Yeah,
Which
that would be really funny. Actually, it'd probably make for really
it
entertaining
would
content.
just be easier because you're actually, if you're doing something for the camera versus doing it in real life, helping Josh, and then you're recording it and then like make it into like a 4-part series or whatever. Cause like guys like me, we're like lost. I would like look at some stuff and I'm like, wait, this is the $300 one. Like why? Like I just don't
Exactly.
get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And it's funny to see what he picks up too. Like, and he actually knows a lot more about vintage than I do. Like, even women's, like, when it comes to vintage, I have no idea. And he'll be like, oh, this is a vintage blah, blah, blah from the 1980s. I'm like, I would have not known that if it were like life or death situation. So everyone knows different stuff. That's why Instagram's so cool because you get to connect with all different kinds of people that know like crazy information that you would have never known.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you only know what you know, right? And it's what I think is really funny is like how you said you wouldn't touch that jacket. I think there's this weird thing to where I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me when I walk into the thrift store or even when I'm looking for stuff for Amazon or whatever. There's like a short period when I first come in where I can't see anything. I don't see anything. I'm like, this sucks. There's nothing in here. But I know that like I need to push through that to get to like the 5 minutes later where I actually start seeing stuff. And then then I just see a lot of stuff. I don't know what it is. It's like this weird psychological block that I have every time I look for stuff where I feel like everything sucks. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, 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 no. There's some stuff here. But you don't know like the stuff, like you said, that jacket that Josh saw and that he got and he sold for 400 or whatever. It was invisible to you. Like
Right.
now you might
Completely.
see it, like if he shows you the tag or you were like, you're going to see like one every like couple months now, and
Exactly.
it's not that it's suddenly appearing. It was always there, but
Oh, yeah.
your mind like filters reality and blocks stuff off from you that like it thinks doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's kind of like whenever you get a new car or whatever and you never noticed that car
Yes.
before you started driving it.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like. I
And
remember the first time I saw the movie
then
Heat.
you start noticing it everywhere.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw the movie Heat. For the rest of my life until now, I see armored cars everywhere. I swear I never seen an armored car before I saw the movie Heat.
Yeah, it's funny. And like subliminal advertising too. Like you'll start seeing something you saw advertised everywhere. Yeah. It's interesting for sure.
Um, so we are talking about eBay and Poshmark, but do you sell on Mercari? Have you tried that yet?
No, and there's actually a reason for that. And the reason is because whenever Mercari first started, they either hired people outside of the company or the employees themselves were spamming the crap out of Poshmark, spamming the absolute crap. Like, come buy this on Mercari, use my code, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought it was a really cheap way to get customers. And so I don't really like their business practices. So I'm not really ever going to sell on there because I just thought it was like such a crappy way to go about doing business. So there's my 2
Right.
cents on
Yeah.
Mercari.
I recently been like inundated with Mercari ads on YouTube.
Yeah, they've been really trying to get out there now, which is making me feel weird. But
Yeah, someone was asking a question about Alexis, one of our mods, was asking about the impulsive nature of Poshmark customers and whether that applies to Mercari buyers as well.
yeah,
I can't say because
I would
I've never bought
assume
anything
that
on Mercari.
I would assume that it's a lot of the same kind of people. So I would assume that that's probably true over there as well. Because like it's an app more so. Like eBay is like a platform, and it used to be primarily web based. So the fact that Poshmark and Mercari are apps and they're actually like, for smartphones, I think that that's definitely going to attract a more millennial crowd anyways. So
Right.
millennials are impulsive shoppers.
Right, and I think that has to go with the whole how frictionless is the shopping experience for them. Can they consume content and then easily switch to purchasing without having to make an account or do anything but put their credit card in? Because that's, I feel like, what we're going to. That's like what eBay totally lacks, is that it doesn't have that you go to eBay when you're ready to buy something. You're super serious. Like, put your
Yeah.
super serious voice on because you're going to buy something and you're going to look stuff up and you're going to get a good deal. You don't go to eBay just to chill out and look at stuff, right? Well,
Yep. Exactly.
you go to Instagram and you look at stuff, and some people sell stuff on Instagram. People have whole business models of selling stuff on Instagram. You're just
Yeah.
looking at stuff, and then you see something you like and you buy. You weren't necessarily there just to shop, but as humans, we shop. So like eBay needs to really get on the ball with like making the shopping experience like more social, like, and maybe that's where we're going, like, as a world as a whole, is like it needs to be like an entertaining experience that like has shopping injected into it, right?
Well, and that's actually interesting too. If you read up on like millennial shopping habits, the most of the time it's either like, yeah, it's like a person to person experience. Like people, millennials love small businesses. They want to feel like there's some sort of cause. So like they love companies like Patagonia that are
Yeah, or
doing things for the
Tom's.
environment, things like that. But Poshmark, it's like, oh, I'm helping another person, so they like the idea of
Right.
like giving their money to someone else. And
Do you
like
have a bio page on Poshmark?
you have it like about the seller page. So if you click on their little picture at the top, it'll take you. You can click on their about the seller page and scroll down and read about people. But you just have to write up a little bio on there.
Right. So it's slightly personable, where
Yeah,
eBay really feels more like you're buying from a business. That's a
yeah.
common problem. People will leave you bad feedback or whatever on eBay, and they don't understand that like you're just like a mom and pop operation, and like that really damages, like, I don't know what it is, but people are like, yeah, screw Walmart. They'll just write whatever they can. But if they knew you were just like one person, you work out of your house or whatever, like, and you don't, you know what I mean, that they might not be so quick to leave you a bad feedback. So people are always like, hey, we're a small company. If you have any problems, please contact us. People that actually put notes in their orders. Do you put notes or cards in your orders at all?
Yeah, I have custom printed business cards, so they're super easy. I don't do any handwritten notes. I used to back in the day, like when I had a really small little Poshmark closet, but I have printed little notes that say like, "Hey, thanks for shopping my closet." The old ones have a discount, so like 15% off your next order, and then the newer ones are just like, "Thanks for shopping," and then on the other side they have my social media stuff on there. So I'm really trying to like push more social media rather, because I used to be like super weird about TheDealQueen because I actually had it private for a long time because I was so worried that people were gonna like be like, oh, reselling is awful and you're making money off of thrift stores, and like I just didn't feel like dealing with it. And I was like super scared it was gonna ruin my business. But now I'm like totally the opposite. I just want, I want to tell everybody about it. I want other people to make money. I want to help people grow their businesses and things like that. So I've completely like changed my mindset about that whole thing.
Let's talk about that real quick. How important do you think talking about what you do is to your business model? Like, I'm not saying you tell everyone exactly how you do it, but if people ask you what you do, I'm sure you tell them that you have a clothing store.
Yeah. So for local people, I definitely tell everybody as far as like contacts, because you never know who's going to be like, hey, I want to clean out my closet. Can you come help me? That type of thing. But then also on Instagram and just like telling people what I do in general, it's somehow actually helped my sales. Like, even though they know exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to thrift stores, I'm buying, I'm reselling. Like, the knowledge that I'm sharing as far as like helping them be successful somehow makes them want to support me even more. So they're willing to shop my closet as well. So it's
Right, you're
actually like
providing because you're
working
providing value.
right. So they want to support me in that way as well. Like, hey, thank you so much for all the information, and I'm making money. So I want to help you make money type of
Right, or
thing.
I saw that you do mystery boxes. Do you do those once a month?
Yep. once a month. I was literally just, I had too much inventory one month and I was like, hey, do you guys want boxes? And then I did it 2 days in a row because I got so many requests. And then ever since then, I've done them every single month, which has been really crazy. So it's been
Nice.
cool. Yeah.
So is it are a lot of those buyers along the lines of what you were saying right now, people that you have engaged with and interacted with on social media and helped them?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think that most people think that I have pretty good taste for the most part. So they, think that they trust that I'm going to send them good stuff because even if they can't wear it or whatever, they can at least resell it and things like that. So I think I'm providing, I think I have decent taste and people trust that I'm going to send them a decent product. So I think that's a lot
Right.
of it.
Don't buy a mystery fashion box from me. It will suck. Don't do it.
A lot of people have been really trying to get into mystery boxes lately. Like a lot of the Instagram community I've been noticing has been trying to get into doing stuff like that because it's pretty fun.
I noticed that also it's like a trend on YouTube. People are like, "Oh, that's the whole video. We bought a mystery box. Let's open it." But it's random. It'll be like they get more and more expensive, like we got a $5,000 mystery box and I'm like, "Holy crap, what's in a $5,000 mystery box?" Like I
Yeah.
I want to watch the video. I didn't watch it, but I like almost did.
Oh yeah, I've watched a couple of them. Like there's this girl, I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but like Graveyard Girl, she's like this crazy YouTube personality, but she I think she did like one that was like $5,000 or something insane. Like it was just like crazy overpriced and then
What was in it?
it ended up being like makeup samples from like Chanel, like the little free samples that you get from like going to but it was like a massive amount of them, like thousands and thousands of these little like packets of random stuff. It was super
That's
weird.
insane. Hopefully she gave them away to her followers
I'm sure she did.
and then write it off as an advertising expense.
Yes, very smart.
So you sell on Poshmark and eBay. Is there any other platforms that you sell on or that you have your eye on or you're thinking about selling? Because I imagine that
I
if you sell on Poshmark, you have to be more aware than someone who just sells on eBay.
Yeah, so I used to really be into selling on the Real Real. Are you familiar with it at all?
Yeah, I know a little bit about the Real Reel from Posh Hanger.
Yeah, so they are a high-end consignment situation. So you send stuff in, but you can get like premium prices. Like, I mean, a lot of the time it's not stuff that I am confident that I could even sell on eBay or Poshmark. Like, okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but I got this Donna Karen crazy dress and it had $2,600 tags on it at Goodwill one time. And
Wow.
I paid up for it a little bit, but it ended up selling for like $700 on the Real Real because um you know they took so much, like the photos were just so much more professional and like they have the client base for that. So I
Right.
knew selling, even if I sold for less money and I had to obviously give them the huge commission that they take, it still ended up being worth my while because they have the client for it.
That's super cool. So I just had an experience like that at the Goodwill. The last time I went thrifting for clothing at the Goodwill with my wife, which I'm probably going to do a haul video pretty soon. I went through the men's clothing. I found like 3 things, like a NASCAR shirt and some other stuff. And she had like she was like, check it out. She had like a whole cart of stuff. And she was just grabbing stuff without looking at the prices. And turns out she came across the higher priced rack, like
Oh
the
yeah.
the really higher price rack, and she didn't realize it. She was just grabbing stuff. So she had like 3 Harley Davidson leather jackets. And I was like, dude, these are going to be money because I know what the prices are, like $8 for a jacket or whatever. But they were like 150 each. And it probably
Holy
could have still
crap.
made some money on them because I think they would have went for like 250 or 300 or something. They were really nice. But it's really disappointing when you think you have like a super score and then you see the Goodwill tag and like you got to kind of like take a step back because you're not used to seeing triple digits on a Goodwill tag.
Oh yeah, it's always very shocking for sure.
And then another thing was we came across a lot. I forget the brands, but there was a few dresses that were like $300, $600. Like, and you were like, your eyes get all big, and then you see the price tag, and of course, it's like a third of the retail price, which you're super bummed about. So, went back on half price day, and they were gone. But found one dress from it had the real tag on the dress still,
Mhm.
which which if I wouldn't have known what the real was, I would have never even looked at it. But since I saw the tag, I was like, oh, the real, like this must be a high end piece. And then I saw, oh, it's leather, and it was like some like I can't even describe it, but like a flower bottom black skirt thing with like a cinch in the bottom. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what the name is, like a poofy ball skirt thingy with like a am I describing it which makes any sense? Like had an elastic in the bottom to where like you'd wear it and then it would like poof out on the bottom.
It's called a bubble dress.
Bubble dress. Yes. See, I described it accurately enough to get that out of you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but it was listed for regular prices, like it slipped through their fingers or whatever. So we paid like $8 for that, and I think it will go for like $80, but it's originally like a $200 leather bubble dress or something.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Bubble
That's crazy.
dress, guys. See, that's why you need to have someone that knows factories. You're gonna be. Do you know how long it would take me to figure out what that's called? And I think I remember I text Posh Hanger from the store, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's a bubble dress." And I already forgot. Like I didn't even know how to like look it up. Like style. If the style number doesn't work when you're looking up clothing for people like me, you're so lost.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely overwhelming.
Um, let's see if we got any questions. I know we had at least one questions. Posh Hanger asked me to tell my wife to go thrifting with her. She would learn a lot. That would be awesome. Have you ever sold on Etsy?
I have not. Thrift Love Sell always makes me want to get into it because she's such like the Etsy master, but I don't really do any vintage or anything like that, so I haven't ever really had anything to sell over there. But yeah, it's supposed to be really cool. Josh, of course, sells on Etsy too, and Grailed and Poshmark and eBay and everywhere, so he talks about it sometimes too.
And Cherish. He sells his furniture on Cherish.
Yeah, he told me about that too. That's crazy.
Yeah, he came out to visit you recently, and you guys went thrifting together a lot.
Yeah, it was awesome. And that was the time we found all those Allbirds, like
I
hundreds of pairs of Allbirds.
I'd never even heard of that brand until I saw that post. That's
I'm gonna
how
be
lame I am.
honest. If I would have saw those and I was not with him, I would have thought that they were just like a random shoe and I would have kept walking. I would not have known at all. And he's like, "Oh, these are cool." And I was like, "Are they?" And then I looked up comps and I was like, "Holy crap, we got to buy all of these." And we sold out of literally all of them.
Did
So
you guys split the purchase or what?
he has a lot more capital than me, so he bought like all the men's and then like some of the women's, and then I bought probably like half the women's stock, and then we ended up going to a second store, and then I also went back to the first store after he left and bought like it was like 50, it was all returns, so 50% of it was new stuff and then 50% was like pre-owned. So I went back and bought all the used ones too because even the used ones were selling like crazy.
Donated from a local retail store or something?
No, so it was like a discount store that basically got their returns directly from Allbirds. We just happened to go in on a good day, I guess, because they just had gotten the stock in. So,
Posh Hanger commented, followed up on my bubble dress. She said, Reezy, it was a Alice and Olivia bubble hem dress. Thank you. Thank you.
nice.
I
That's
also
a good
remember
one.
that name, Alice and Olivia, probably from one of her posts too. So
Alice and Olivia is a great brand.
now you know, guys. Pay attention, all you dudes out there. Alice and Olivia. What is the what's like the most expensive thing that you've ever sold on Poshmark or eBay?
I sold a Jimmy Choo bag on Poshmark for $750. I sold a pair of Valentina Rockstud boots for I believe it was $895 on eBay, and then I recently sold, this was cool. It was like regular thrift price, so I didn't even pay up for it or anything. I bought a $4 sweater at Goodwill and it sold for $350 to this guy named Alessandro in Italy, which was cool. So
Wow,
thought that
Alessandro
was
has
cool.
style and money.
He was fancy.
Someone had a question for you. They said, "How do you keep up on current trends? Blogs, magazines, or is it just in
Um,
your blood?" I
yeah,
added that.
definitely blogs are super helpful. Following bloggers on Instagram fills your feed up with trends. And I also think it's
Any
more so just
bloggers you want to shout out that can help us out?
hmm. Um, favorite fashion bloggers, just as far as like, I mean, there's all the big ones like Rachel Parcell, Emily Gemma, like Blair Edie is a really good one. Her blog's called Atlantic Pacific. She's like the queen of fashion. I mean, she's always, talking about recent trends and things like that. Pretty much any fashion blogger is like pretty on trend, but yeah, those are the big ones probably. And then also a big thing to remember is like going to the mall or like going to like a retail store and like looking around, like Nordstrom, or go to Saks or something and look around at what they have, because that's the stuff that's going to end up in the thrift in the next like few months. So it's good to know what's coming out.
Yep, people watching.
Yes, exactly.
You could learn a lot from that. It's like, I don't know how familiar you are with the t-shirt stuff with Amazon or Etsy. I know Josh does a little bit of it, merch by Amazon, but anywhere I go, I'm always just looking at people's shirts, like I don't care if you're 5 years old, I'm gonna say like, hey, what does your shirt say? Like I want to
Exactly.
know
Yeah.
what your shirt says. Like if it's not like a Disney shirt or some like brand that I can't make, like if it's some phrase and you're wearing it, like I want to know what it is, because that to me, like that's proof of concept. I'm like, okay, it's already sold. Like now I
Exactly.
just need to make a similar one that this same type of cut. Because like, what's the chance that that person wearing that item is the only one in the world that will buy that item? Zero.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
like a basic average person. That's why they bought that. And there's plenty of other basic average people that, and so you can learn from that.
Exactly. Definitely true. I think that's the best part of selling mall brands, is that they're so familiar and they're super prevalent in thrift stores. So that's why I like selling them, because they're super easy to get and you don't have to like authenticate them. You don't have to be confused. You just, they're everywhere, and if you find the right kind of pieces, you can sell them all day long.
Right. And it's the same thing with shoes. Once I never looked at shoes until I started selling shoes. Now I look at
Right.
everyone's shoes. And when people ask me, what kind of shoes sell? Like I seem in my head, I'm like, this is the dumbest question on earth. What shoes do you see people wearing? Go outside and look, and it's like, what do you see? You see Nike, Adidas, Converse, Vans, Skechers. Like I can't go into like the women's shoes or whatever, but I see when I see women wearing that, I can tell they're wearing like expensive stuff. I'll be like, because I just like to talk. I just can't ever shut up. And I'll be in line and I'll just be like, what kind of shoes are those? And it's the funniest thing. Like women are just like, oh, they just turn around and they'll tell you everything. They're like so happy you asked them about their shoes and they want to tell you about their shoes. And it's like, I was almost thinking that like single guys should try to like adopt this as like pickup, like just ask a chick about her shoes, she'll tell you her life story.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I would love if some guy asked me about my shoes. I'd have a whole story about it. So I'm sure probably would say, "Oh, thanks, they're from Goodwill," and then they'd be really weirded out. But works for me.
So, does your family support what you do? Do they still tell you to get a real job?
No, they've never told me that actually. They're really supportive, and they both are business owners too. So, I mean, or they were at one time. My mom owned a retail store for my entire life. So she was always, I mean, they were definitely apprehensive because Poshmark was such a new concept that they were like really worried that, it was going to go out of business before I could even make it into anything. But obviously, they've gotten millions of dollars and rounds of funding at this point. So, no, I mean, that was really their only concern, but they know I can figure it out.
I saw a picture on your feed, I believe. Was it you with Stephanie from the Resell Life
Yeah, yeah.
at
That was
Posh Fest?
mhm.
So tell us what Posh Fest is.
All right, I will. Okay, my unfortunately I have like 5% battery on my phone. So I'm going to have to take a 3-second break to go run and get my charger really quick. Is
All
that
right,
cool?
cool. Yeah, no, that's
All right.
totally cool.
All right, BRB.
All chargers matter.
All right.
So in a second, we're gonna learn about Posh Fest, guys. How is everybody in the chat world doing? Are you guys learning? Are we learning about Poshmark and about women's fashion? I think it's super important to learn about this stuff because I always tell everybody to be a thrift army knife. And what that means is that you need to know about as much stuff as possible so that when you go into a thrift store, you're increasing the chances that you are able to find something that's worth money, right? So obviously I know about books, but I know about electronics and I know about toys and I am learning men's clothing and like I would like to get into women's clothing, but it's important to to immerse yourself in these different types of knowledge just so that you can increase your likelihood of finding stuff. Like if I would have never followed Posh Hanger, besides a lot of other things never happening, because she introduced me to a lot of good people, I wouldn't have known about the Real, or I maybe not have known as soon. I wouldn't know what Alice and Olivia is, and so I wouldn't have grabbed that dress. But because I had interacted with that knowledge, I was able to find that, which was really cool. AM
I
Sanders
made it
asked,
back.
oh, you're back?
I'm back.
Awesome. AM Sanders asked about the trends, and we were talking about, she said she follows bloggers, specifically bloggers on her Instagram feed. So I thought that was a good tip because you can just consume that content passively while you're already on Instagram. And I know this is YouTube, guys, but please head over to Instagram and check it out because it is the spot. Instagram is, in my opinion, the number one hottest social media platform. It's where the reselling community is. It's like where we hang out. Obviously, I don't know what it is. It's just YouTube is too formal. Like everyone wants to like be perfect on YouTube, but on Instagram, like we just don't care as much. So like we share more. I don't know. Can you explain it?
For sure. So I definitely think Instagram is more of like a chill, like let's get to know each other, like hang out type of place. And YouTube is more of, hey, I want X, Y, and Z content. I want to learn something and I'm going to go over to YouTube and I'm going to look it up. But on Instagram, people just kind of hang out. Oh, I just got an eBay offer. It's pretty good actually. Anyways, so yeah, I think Instagram's more of a it's more of just like a hangout, chill, like get to know people. I think that's a good thing too to remember is
Do you
that like you're
Facebook at all?
I mean, I have a personal Facebook, but I don't really think anybody's really using Facebook other than for groups. Like I know a lot of
Yeah,
people are in
groups are
Facebook
huge.
groups. But other than that, I mean, as far as Facebook pages,
But
I
still, I
don't
feel
really.
like the engagement on Facebook, like the groups are huge on Facebook. If you're not using Facebook groups, you are missing out on a ton of valuable information and community. But still, Facebook and YouTube, they all lack that element that Instagram has. And I think for me, at least, what it is it's like people care more about their Instagram account, or there's less trolling, there's less BS. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like you follow someone and then like you have this like community thing. It's not like you're in my group. I'm on this person's group. It's not my YouTube. It's not it's like if someone sees your thing and comments on it, like they care about you. They're like in your thing. I don't know. I can't really explain it. It's just less exclusionary.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that also if you're going to be building a personal brand, like I know you and I are like, I mean, Reezy's a huge brand, whether, I'm sure you're very aware of this, but people know like the Reezy brand, even if they don't know you and they don't
What are you
watch your
talking
content.
about?
Like, exactly. So, like, even if they don't know your life story, they know, like, oh, that Reezy guy, that guy that, wears the hat and the glasses, like, they know who Reezy is, whether they know you or not. But it's like building a personal brand and having your own personality and, like, your online, like, who you are type of thing, I think is really cool for Instagram because people get to know you. And, like, I think that's a lot of the reason that my following on Instagram is getting bigger is because I share a lot of my personal life. Like, people like last night I went on a date and I talked about my date on Insta stories and people messaged me and asked me about it and wanted
Yeah,
to be
here,
engaged.
check this out. This is gonna blow people's minds away. Did you get more responses about that story than content that you would put on your story that has to do with reselling?
Yeah, people love to know about if they are engaged with you and they like you and they follow you, they want to know all the details about your personal life. And that's
Yep.
why I did that yesterday because I was like, people like really wanted to know surprisingly. Like people were really interested. They asked me a million questions. They wanted
Yep.
all the details like, be yourself. I
That's
know
why
that
I'm
sounds like
glad I'm glad that
cliche.
John's back traveling thrift on Instagram because I missed his stories.
Exactly.
He had one story one time. This was like the funniest story ever, and he was talking about how he's like it was like it spanned like 2 or 3 days, but it was like he was like, oh, I got this shirt at the thrift, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna wear this tonight. Like I'm going out. I got me a hot date. And then he was out on his date, and then he like I don't know what happened that night, but then he was like walking home in the morning, and it was like the walk of shame because he had left his car wherever because he didn't want a DUI, and he was like you might be asking yourself, why am I still wearing the same thing from yesterday? And he's like, yep. Like
Oh
it
my
was just, it
gosh.
was too funny, right? And he was
Yes.
talking about how many compliments he got on his shirt, and like it was just super engaging. And I think people have this problem all the time. Like, for example, you're a realtor, then you get on Instagram because you want to use it to build your I'm a realtor brand up and sell more houses or whatever, but all you do is post pictures of houses. It's not going to work like that. Like you should post, every like 1 out of 6 pictures is about realty and the other 5 pictures are like what you do for fun. And
Right.
like
And
that's what people relate with you. So when they go, oh yeah, I need to buy a house and I live in this area, that guy's cool. I'm gonna hit him up.
exactly. And it sounds like, I know this is the most cliche thing in the world to say, but like, be yourself is like the most genuine thing I could ever offer as far as like building a social media is like, be yourself. Like, some things I say, I know like not everyone's going to agree with me, but being relatable and being yourself and like being authentic is so important. And like the things that I get the most likes on, this is going to sound crazy, but like I bought a car and that got the most likes of anything I've ever posted. And then selfies. People love to see what you
Yep.
look like, which
That's
sounds
huge.
crazy,
That's
but
very huge. A lot of people. So I actually talked to someone, and I used him as an example in the last show, and I'll do it again. I believe his Instagram is Pickin' Profits. I believe. Does that make sense to you? I'm actually gonna look
um
it up real quick. Hold on. Pickin'. One second, guys. I'm actually typing this in here. Pickin' for profit. Okay. Cool dude. Go follow him on Instagram. He finds really cool stuff. It's a lot different than what everyone else finds, which is why I like consuming content. I like this. It's a reason why I watch um what's it called? American Pickers or the Pawn any of those shows. I don't care about the show. I want to see the stuff, you know what I mean? And see what the stuff is worth or whatever. And he posts different stuff, so it's cool. And I'm sorry to put him on blast, but it's partly advertising telling you guys to go follow him, so it's all good. But he was like, he hit me up and he's like, hey, how can I, help me grow my thing? And like, why do I not get like traction? I have good content and good stories and it's all good. And so I went and looked at his Instagram. Right away I was like, oh man, there's no selfies. And I had to scroll down and scroll and scroll. And I finally found a selfie. And then when I clicked on it to see what the date was, it was over a year. Over a
yeah,
year that he hadn't posted a selfie. And I was like, dude, no one knows who you are. Like a
exactly.
year ago, like they just think you're some company posting pictures. Like you need to show pictures of yourself like smiling, like maybe other people with you that are smiling too, so like people know you're like not a straight weirdo, and it's like be relatable. You need to sell yourself, like not your product or your whatever it is. You need to make people like you, and then once they like you, they'll be willing to like participate in whatever you're doing because they like you. And a lot of people think that taking selfies, there's like this misconnotation that like taking selfies is like narcissistic or something.
Right.
And like I would say maybe it is if you weren't sharing them with people. If you were just taking them for yourself and like amassing like a massive album of selfies and you just looked at them all the time, yes. But that's how the internet sees you is with selfies, right? So I was like, the first thing I told him, I was like, look, take more selfies. Here's the date. The last time you took a selfie, you should be ashamed of yourself. And now go look at someone who's real successful with Instagram, like Nicole State, and look how many selfies she took. Like I don't even have to look at her profile. I guarantee she probably took at least 1 or 2 selfies today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I actually, whenever you were asking me like what really got me going on Instagram, I will tell you that the second that I started posting Instagram stories, when that came out, it was a game changer. People watch my Instagram stories like religiously, like they literally watch every
How many
single thing
views
that
are
I
you
post.
getting?
I mean, usually up to 7,000 if like on
That's
a good day.
huge. That's
So,
huge.
yeah, so I mean, people are really engaged on my Instagram stories because I'm A, being myself, and B, like people want to see what you're doing. They want to see what you're
Right.
actually doing, not like staged pictures and all. Like
Right.
people want to
Just
see your life.
Just to
And
put it into
that's
perspective, guys, we have a very similar following size on Instagram. I'm sure it's very different. I'm sure your demographic is probably mostly females and mine is mostly males, but it's still within the same niche or whatever. And I'll be lucky to get a 3,000 view day on my story. Like 2,000 is probably what I get, but I'm super busy. I'm not really on my stories as much as I should be, and that obviously the more you're on it, the more people come back to watch it or whatever. but that's really good, like 6 to 7,000 views for 30,000 followers. That's like super solid.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I try to be. I mean, first of all completely myself, and second of all, I am like very honest, and I think that that's refreshing for most people because most people are like playing some sort of part, or they're like, trying to be fancy, or like I'm just like my authentic. Like people think I'm funny because I just don't care. Like I just say
Right.
whatever I want. And most people relate to that more than they relate to you like trying to sell them something. And that's another really important thing about social media, in my opinion, is that build a following before you try to sell them stuff. Like,
Right.
don't try to sell them stuff the second you have 100 followers. Nobody wants to follow
Yeah,
that.
your mystery boxes aren't going to pop off if you have 100 followers.
Yeah, and like also nobody's going to follow you if they see that all you do is sell stuff. Like nobody wants to follow those accounts. They want to follow people who have interesting things to say. So,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. Sell yourself, not your stuff. You can
exactly.
do that later. Um, yeah. So what do you think about do you do a lot of Instagram live?
Um, I did there for a while. I haven't been recently just because I really want to get people like over to my YouTube channel, and I actually want to like record some content for that and everything. So, I really want to get all that like the video content other than like my quick little stories over to YouTube. So that's probably going to be my plan going forward.
Do you do any type of scheduling with your Instagram or is it all just random?
I don't schedule it right now, but I also think that's part of like the authenticity of it is that I'm not scheduling and I'm not grid planning my Instagram. Like I know a lot of very successful fashion bloggers literally grid plan their Instagram and like plan it out, and it's very formal and all of that. But like
I've just heard
really,
that a lot of like people that have larger Instagrams, they have like okay, my following is active at 11 a.m. So I post my first picture every day at 11 a.m.
yeah, I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not that specific with it. I will say if I post really late at night or really early in the morning, it has the least amount of engagement, and that's actually happened the last couple of days. For some reason I happened to post like really early and really late, and I noticed that the engagement was down like tenfold. If you post like in the middle of the day, like afternoon time, or for me like in the evenings, obviously when people are off work, I feel like I get more engagement near that time. So
Right. And you made a good point about stories. And I always tell people stories are very, very important. And I think the reason is because, like you said, it can't really be staged. Like most people can't afford to have someone else film them. So it's
right.
generally you holding the camera within arm's distance, and they can see you and they can hear you. They can hear you breathing. Like and you have to build it, right? So it's kind of like, I know some people like overly produce their stories and they like edit them and then like send it over to Instagram and chop it up or whatever. But it takes a while, right? So for the most part, it's kind of just like, yeah, let's make it and let's send it out. And it's going to be gone in 24 hours anyway. So who cares? And so I think it makes people feel, it makes you more trustworthy, right? Because they like feel close to you. They can see your eyes and like it's just right there.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think that that's, I mean, obviously, if you're just going to post a bunch of boring stuff and it's just going to be you not making, like, I think there's an entertainment factor. Like, if you have nothing to say and you're boring and you're not entertaining or engaging in some way, obviously, Instagram stories aren't going to be quite as fun. But, like, I think a lot of the big time Instagram people have a cool Instagram story going along with their feed. Like, people want to know what you're doing all day. They want you to make it funny and entertaining. Like, I think that that's the main reason people watch Insta stories, is to be entertained more so than anything else. So,
Right. Yeah. I've also noticed too a cool thing to do that helps to get more views on your Insta story is if, like, say you have a really good Insta story and you know when it's really good, you just know it because it's like you get excited to make it yourself, right? And then you're like, oh, this is good. So then you can post a picture to your feed and then be like, yeah, picture from today, like when I did this. If you want to see like the behind the scene deets, like hit the story, and then like
exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I do it too because I don't watch stories too much. I mean, when I get caught up in them, I do watch a good amount. Like it gets me, but I'll be like scrolling the feed and then I'll see a picture and it'll be like, oh, story from this. Check out the story, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so let me go find your story, and then I watch it and then I get sucked into everyone else's stories.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sucks you in.
Yeah.
So let's go back real quick to we got super diverted, which is okay. What is Posh Fest? I'm assuming it's a conference that Poshmark puts on.
Yeah, so it's just an annual conference, and the really cool thing about what am I what am I saying? Posh Fest. Um, the developers are there, so like Manish, who's the CEO, the entire crew is there, and all of the developers are there. So everybody who works on the behind the scenes stuff is there. You get like exclusives like of upcoming stuff that they're about to do. Manish is literally the most down to earth, like chill CEO you would ever meet in your life. Like he walks around and talks to people. The first Posh Fest I went to, 4 years ago, he sat on the floor and talked to everybody. And like the developers sit with you at lunch, and literally one of the guys had a notepad out and was taking down notes on all the suggestions that we had for the app. Like they actually really care and want to improve.
Wow. Are
And
you listening,
it's
eBay? Are you listening?
it's pretty cool.
That
Yeah.
is
So I mean,
extremely cool.
and I actually remember like it was really cool to me that this last Posh Fest we were sitting at a lunch table, and my friend Leah, who has a YouTube channel, her and her husband are like Poshmark fanatics. They are like you know do data, they track their data, they like do all the algorithms, and they try to figure out what's going on within the algorithms and just crazy stuff. But the developers were sitting at the table with them and literally writing down everything he was saying. Like her husband was
Wow.
just like spouting off all these different ideas, and they like wrote it all down. So I thought that was really cool.
Side note, what happened to the resale life? When I saw that post that you made, I was like, oh yeah, the resale life. Haven't seen them for days, and I clicked on their handle and it's gone.
So I've actually had a lot of people asking me that, and I've only met them that one time in person. But from what I was told, they actually broke up, and so that's why they deleted their account. I haven't actually
Hmm.
talked to them since, but my good friends that they know that also went to Posh Fest, I messaged them and said like, "Where did they go?" And they told me that they broke up, which I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh no, that's awful."
Very awful. It's they were a cute reselling couple too.
They
It's
were.
sad. I also looked at Steph has an Instagram. I guess you tagged on your picture and there's no content on it. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I don't. They were really cool too. Like I'm really sad to see them not on Instagram anymore.
Yeah. If you guys are listening or watching, reach back out. Let's connect. Someone was asking about men's stuff on Poshmark. I know you said you have a little bit experience with that. What's that like?
Yeah, it's growing exponentially for sure. Like 1 in 3 new closets on Poshmark is a men's closet, or like a man who's going to be shopping presumably for men's items. But I have a men's closet. It's separate, and to be honest, it's been on the back burner lately because I've had too much going on. But I've made a pretty solid amount of sales on there for putting absolutely no effort into it recently.
What how many sales do you make a day on Poshmark?
It really depends, and I think it's like for me. So like my average sale price is around $50. So I'm usually doing less volume and more profit per item, or at least that's the goal. So it depends. Sometimes 10, sometimes 5, sometimes 25 if I run a sale. It just really like it honestly just depends. It's really
Nice.
inconsistent. So
Do you want to share any numbers at all from your sales or no?
I mean,
Like, do you know your 2017 sales numbers?
I do. It's not broken out. I have a lot of different streams of income at the moment, so it's not broken out by platform, but I was doing I usually do between like it depends on the month, but usually between like 6 and 8,000 a month on
Nice.
Poshmark.
What are your
So
different streams of income?
Poshmark, eBay, mystery boxes, and I just recently started doing closet consultations for Poshmark, which has been pretty cool. And
Nice. How does
then
that work? People who are doing Poshmark, they just want tips and so they consult with you?
yeah, so it's basically what Nicole State's doing. She's doing like the eBay store reviews. I'm basically
Mhm.
doing the same thing. It's just for Poshmark, and then I send them like a full like list. Like it's basically like a bullet point list in a Word document.
How do you
Um,
set that up? Do you have a link or do they just DM you?
I do it once a month because I can only take so many requests, so I have to cut it off. Like
Mm.
I physically can only do so many reviews at one time. So I make a post about it. They DM me, and then I take as many request as I can before I know I will run out of time in the month, and then I just do it again the next month.
So if someone
So
wants one, their best bet would be to follow you and then turn on post notifications.
exactly, which is what I always tell people. And it's the same with mystery boxes. They usually sell out within 5 hours. And so if somebody misses that window, they're sold out every month. So I just, yeah, I'm only one person. I obviously don't have anyone helping me. So I have to like cut off the number at some point.
Jason is asking about women's jeans on Poshmark. Any certain brands that you like?
Yeah, I'm actually really picky about jeans because they don't actually move for me, and it's if it's not like a dark wash, skinny, or like a boyfriend fit, I typically don't pick them up just because they're really hard for me to move.
What's
But I
boyfriend fit?
like they're like baggy, like casual jeans basically.
Oh,
Um,
like you borrowed them from your boyfriend and they don't really fit you?
exactly. So, I like Rag and Bone, Page, let's see. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I actually just made a brand list on my blog if anybody wants to go read
What
it.
is the blog again? I'll put that in the description after we get off the video.
It's TheDealQueenblog.com. And I just recently did a brand list, like my 30 favorite brands to sell on Poshmark and then also on eBay. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole like little clip of denim brands too if you want to read over that. But
Posh Hanger is talking about jeans in the chat. She says J Brand, Current Elliott, Ragbone, and Madewell do great for her on Poshmark.
all of those are exactly what I would have said too. So definitely.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
we agree on pretty much everything.
Awesome. Have you guys met in real life?
No, I think we're meeting in March though at the reseller meetup. So
I
let's
gotta come out to there. I think I'm gonna make it out there. It sounds like a
please
lot of
come. It's
fun.
gonna be so good. I've been wanting to meet Monica for so long though. That's gonna be so great.
It's like a superhero. You just can't wait.
I know, seriously, she is. She's definitely like goals for sure.
Um, what is one thing, like if you could go back in time and talk to yourself for like 5 minutes and when you first started Poshmark, what is one thing that you would tell yourself, like the most important information that you think would help you do better in Poshmark?
Um, be consistent, do your research, and save your money. Because if you're, if you're buying a bunch of stuff, you're going to get a death pile. You're never going to physically be able to get through a giant death pile as one person. I mean, maybe if you just list and never leave the house again for 3 months, but like, I know in the beginning, I was like, oh, this will sell, this will sell. I had no idea what I was doing. Granted, Poshmark was brand new, so I had no way of learning, but I just built a giant death pile for myself. I didn't really know how to do any research on it, and I ended up spending a lot of money. So I would say start small, spend money that you're making on your sales. So, like, sell stuff from your house, take that money and reinvest it and just grow it like that rather than don't take out a loan, don't like get crazy or anything like that. I would definitely say get your feet wet with your own items from your house and then branch out from there.
Awesome. If you guys are listening to this and you appreciate the information, please smash the like button and please subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified when I make new videos that provide valuable content for you guys. Feel free to comment on the videos and let me know anything if you guys want more of, you want less of. I mentioned it earlier, but in case you guys forgot, if there was any specific things in this video that like stood out to you as like the nugget of the video, comment down below. And if other people, if you're in the comments and you see those posts, upvote those, press the thumbs up so that we can see them and they come to our attention. Um, I do this thing where I let the guest ask the audience a question, and then you'll probably get like 20 replies, and then you can come into you can engage, and then your YouTube will be in my YouTube comments, and you'll be hanging out and having a good time. But what is your question for the Reezy Ninja audience?
Ooh, that's a good one. I really want to I want to know what is the scariest thing about Poshmark to eBay people? Like to the eBay and Amazon sellers, like what is the scariest or weirdest or like most confusing part of Poshmark? I'd really like to know.
That's a great one. You can use that strategically to make videos.
Exactly. That would be
That
really
is
helpful.
great. So, I really appreciate you taking these 2 hours of your evening to be on the show. I feel like we provided a lot of value for people that are thinking about selling Poshmark or already do sell on Poshmark. We got one thing we say around here. Do you know what it is?
I don't actually.
If you ain't flipping,
You slipping?
yep, you
Oh,
got
all
it.
right. All
If you
right,
ain't
cool.
flipping, you slipping. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I appreciate it. Oh, and I have bad news for you. Don't cry, but Posh said she's not coming to the thing.
What? Oh my gosh. That is the worst news I've heard today, actually.
I am
That's really
so
upsetting.
sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
That's okay. I'll forgive her for now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll let you know when this hits the podcast. If you guys are watching the show, I do it every Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern. If you want to catch up on the content, but you don't have the time to watch the videos or hang out, head over to iTunes and subscribe to my podcast. And all of the episodes are on there eventually, and then you can catch the information while you're just driving and vibing. But I appreciate all you guys for coming and hanging out. Smash the like button on your way out and make sure you go and follow the Deal Queen on Instagram and subscribe to her YouTube and turn the bell on and go and comment on one of her videos and say Reezy sent me. Appreciate you
Perfect.
guys showing some love to our guests because they're not getting paid. They're coming here to hang out with me and to provide value for you guys. So just show them that we appreciate that. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight,
Thanks,
Alexandria.
Reezy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.